Ahoj úžasňáci. V tomto podcastu vám budu v angličtině vyprávět o své dovolené v Egyptě. Pokud ještě tolik v angličtině, řekněme, nerozumíte a potřebujete k tomu titulky, tak vám doporučuji si podcast pustit na YouTube. Odkaz najdete v popisku, pokud teď posloucháte na nějaké podcastové platformě. No a na YouTube si můžete zapnout jak anglické titulky, tak dokonce dvojazyční titulky. Pokud nevíte jak na to, tak se podívejte na video, návod, taktéž v popisku tohoto videa, neboli podcastu. A teď už se pojďme pustit na to. Hello, my dearest students. So, as I already said in this podcast, I will be talking about my holiday in Egypt. First of all, I would love you to excuse the sound of my voice right now because I'm still sick. I actually fell sick on the holiday, which is the one thing everybody definitely dreams of, right? But I'm gonna get there. We had been planning this holiday for 3 months before we actually were supposed to go. And let me tell you, it felt like the longest 3 months of my life because I was so looking forward to going to Egypt for the first time. I had never ever experienced a all-inclusive type of holiday before, and since I'm a sucker for new experiences, I was like, yeah, I need to know what it feels like. To be honest, I was a bit worried because I feel like I'm not the typical type of person that could enjoy this type of holiday in a resort. But it turned out that I just might be, but it really depends on the resort. We had the best resort you can possibly imagine. Even my husband, who has been to Egypt like 7 times already, said that this has been the best resort he has ever been to. And that means something, right? And I was also extremely looking forward to that holiday for one simple reason, and that was my extremely busy summer. Because I knew I was gonna go on holiday to Egypt and right after on holiday to Bali, I kind of had to do the work I would normally be doing in September and October in June, July and August. I kind of had to compensate for my upcoming long break. So really, I didn't even have time to catch a breath or to meet up with anybody. I was solely working, and let me tell you, I felt so burnt out after this terrible summer that holiday was exactly what I needed. We were actually leaving on the 10th of September, and we set off from our home in Pilsen on Sunday at 10 p.m., which was already super late for me. I'm normally sound asleep at this time, but I managed to stay awake even longer than I thought. I was hoping I could actually sleep on the plane, but I didn't have much luck with that. I just can't fall asleep on planes. The whole airport experience felt like eternity. It was a waiting game, let me tell you, because we waited at like 5 different spots forever. And the worst thing about the whole journey there was that I didn't have any water. I normally always take an empty bottle of water to fill it in with water after the security check, as you can do normally at the airport. But this was my first time flying from Terminal 1, and I had no idea that you can actually fill in your bottle before the security check. But why would you do that if they spill the water out again after the security check? And it was super strange because from my own experience, the normal way it usually is that you, of course, first go through the security check, then you can go to the duty-free shops and to toilets and, I don't know, to buy whatever you want. And then you go to the gate and then you board the plane and you fly. But in Terminal 1, it was different because first there was the duty-free zone where you could buy whatever. Then there was the security check, and then after the security check, you would immediately board. So I didn't have a chance to fill in my water bottle. I didn't have a chance to fill in my bottle of water, jeez, because there was not an opportunity to. And I already accepted my fate that I would have to pay fortune on the plane to buy water. But when the flight attendants were passing by offering some products, I asked them for water, and they said that if I wait a bit, they will bring me water for free. I was like, okay, so I guess I can wait. But what they brought me actually was maybe like 100 milliliter cup. And 1 hour later, after I felt like I was already dying from thirst, so that definitely was not enough. And then they didn't give me any chance to buy water. So it was terrible. And then when we finally got off the plane in Egypt, there was no opportunity to buy any water. We were again spending eternity in queues, and there were no shops whatsoever. And then we had to go out and wait for the bus, and then by bus we went to a resort, and then we had to spend again an eternity waiting at the reception before we were finally let in the resort and I could go and get water. So it was maybe like 10 hours of dying from thirst. Yeah, it was terrible. I had such a terrible headache and I felt sick because on the airplane I was only wearing shorts because normally I am hot on board, but this time I was cold AF and I didn't have any jacket on me or anything. So it was really tough. Luckily, we got our room definitely much earlier than we thought we would, because normally you should get the room at 2 p.m. and we got it at like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., which was amazing because I cannot imagine just hanging around and waiting for a room when you are so tired. And a tip for you, in Egypt, actually everybody expects you to tip them. The waiters, the housekeepers, the receptionists, everybody. And they are also super grateful for it. So if you can, I would recommend you to have a lot of $1 banknotes, and yeah, a lot of, I mean, for example, 40 of them for the whole week holiday, and give them out as much as you can because they will do wonders for you if you tip them. So our room was nice. It was quite small, but actually you don't need a bigger room. You just sleep there and sometimes you just chill there, but that's about it. We had a big bed, which was super comfortable to my surprise, and a little tiny little sofa and a table. And then there was a balcony that I actually never used because outside it's always so hot, even at night. So I never really went there to just chill out. And we had a nice bathroom with a huge shower, which was really nice. And that's it, yeah, typical room. If you want to see the clips from my room and general like the clips from my holiday and from the resort, I have recorded a vlog and it will be out in a week after this podcast. So if you want, you can definitely go and check out my YouTube channel, Výuka online. Our room was amazing. It was small, but it was cozy and it had everything we needed. The bed was super comfortable. I was actually shocked by the fact that I could get a really good sleep there, which doesn't really happen on holidays for me. One huge downside was that the air conditioning in the room was blowing too intensively, and basically it was blowing on my head for the whole night. So it wasn't a surprise to me to find out maybe 3 days later that I actually fell sick. Sickness and illness, those were the two things that were ruining my holiday. I was doing everything I could to remain positive, but it was hard, let me tell you, when I was feeling this sick. My biggest problem in the first few days was, of course, an extremely sore throat. Eventually, it became a really strong cold and cough. And on top of that, like all four of us, my mother-in-law, my husband's brother, my husband and I, we all started having trouble with our digestion. It's not unusual in Egypt, but still I didn't expect to catch that bug. So we had to get the antibiotics in the pharmacy, and I think that the pharmacist still can remember my face because I've been to the pharmacy 4 times, I would say. I would never expect that I would spend that much time in a pharmacy on holiday, but unfortunately that's exactly what happened. I was really hoping that I would like magically heal and I would not suffer with cold throughout the whole holiday, but unfortunately it's exactly what happened. And now it's been 2 weeks since I fell sick, and you can probably still hear in my voice that I am still sick. And when it comes to my digestion, it's still a tragedy. Luckily it's getting better, but I've been really struggling, trust me. The resort itself was wonderful. I actually found out that it was a combination of 3 hotels, of 3 resorts. So the whole area you could be walking around in was huge. And it was not unusual to have 20,000 steps at the end of the day, even though I wasn't trying to get my steps in on purpose. It was only from walking around to the breakfast, to the pool, to the sea, to the lagoon, and everywhere around. So if you want to try an all-inclusive type of holiday, but you feel like you are too adventurous and too active and that you would get bored, trust me, go to this huge resort. It's actually called PickAlbatros Oasis and Sands, and it's in Marsa Alam. And I don't believe that it is possible to get bored there. I was there for 10 days. And I feel like I didn't have a minute to rest, actually. It's true that we also booked a lot of trips. One of the trips I didn't go to was a trip to Luxor, and I am so glad I didn't go because I was so afraid of the journey. Off the record, I hate traveling, and I mean going by car, by bus, by plane. I hate traveling to destinations, but I do enjoy being at those destinations, but I just hate the journey there. So when they told me that it would take 5 hours to get to Luxor in the morning and then 5 hours back, I was like, no way I'm going. And luckily I didn't, because it was actually the day when I felt the worst about my cold. And if I tried to go to Luxor in that extreme heat, yeah, my family said that it felt like you were in a sauna, I think I would have died. A few days later, when I was starting to feel a bit better, we went on a quad trip. It was my favorite trip of all. I had never driven a quad before, and I was a bit worried, but actually it's extremely easy and it is so stable that it's basically impossible to crash with it or anything. And I felt so free and amazing when we were just driving through the desert. And even though there was not much to see, I really enjoyed just looking over the horizon and paying attention to driving. We drove for like half an hour, I would say, until we arrived to this huge tent where there was a lot of Egyptians, and they invited us in, and they prepared some kind of like a lecture about the herbs and teas and oils and perfumes and everything they had there. They let us smell their products and test out a few things so that we could buy it. And we ended up buying 4 different types of tea. Looking back, I think it's a bit overpriced, but the tea is really delicious, so I don't really mind, and I wanted to support the community there. And they also had camels, and of course I did not ride a camel. I don't really want to support that kind of business, but I felt really sorry for those camels, so I only petted them and I let them be. Then we got back on our quads and we again drove for another half an hour to a beautiful lagoon, and there we watched the sunset, and the amazing guide took a lot of funny pictures of us, and we made a lot of jokes and we talked. And then we headed back to the resort where we started from, and it in total took 3 hours, but it went by super quickly. I would actually prefer it a bit longer. And the next day we had another trip, and it was a huge step out of my comfort zone. I may just tell you my first experience with snorkeling first, and then I go back to this boat trip. So when we were choosing the destination, we decided to go to Marsa Alam, because Marsa Alam is quite popular for snorkeling and for the reefs and for the sea life there. And since I had never tried snorkeling before and I was really interested in it, my husband decided that we should go to that area so that I can really try it and enjoy it to the fullest. So we bought all the necessary equipment for snorkeling. The first fuck up happened in the pool when I was trying the equipment, and I felt like the full face mask didn't really fit me. I don't know, because later, like 2 days later, it suddenly fit me, so I think I was just panicking. But still, at that moment, I felt like it didn't fit me. And we went then to the sea, and in Egypt, usually the beach and the sea at the beach is really shallow, and you have to go on a long jetty before you reach the deep water, where you can finally go diving and go snorkeling, swimming, and all that fun stuff. And when I jumped into the sea, I immediately panicked because there was so many waves. I didn't know how to swim with the flippers, and I got water under the mask. So it took me maybe like 20 seconds before I, in panic, climbed up the stairs, and I didn't want to go back into the water. To be honest, at that moment, I thought that this was my first and only experience with snorkeling. I never wanted to try it again because I was terrified. And to be honest, I am normally terrified by water. I really don't like swimming and any water sports, really. But thanks to my husband, I decided to give it a second go 2 days later. And I was really proud of myself because this time I didn't panic. I tried to be calm. I actually put on a safety vest so that I was sure that I couldn't drown in the sea. And I tried snorkeling, and this time the mask even fit me, and I enjoyed watching the sea life so much because there were hundreds of fish and other sea creatures, and it felt so good to be just watching it. It's a marvelous experience. I have never experienced anything like that before. And this amazing experience later drove me to apply for a boat trip where we went with my husband. And because I felt courageous, I decided to even purchase diving on that trip. And I'm maybe still am a bit, but diving is another of my huge fears. And it is much, much worse than snorkeling, or that's what I thought. And actually it was much scarier. But I really wanted to change my personality, and I wanted to become a more adventurous and spontaneous type of person. So this was a great opportunity for me to again step out of my comfort zone. What was bad about the whole boat trip situation was that I was still sick, and actually my ears were blocked and my nose as well. And it's really hard because when you go diving, you need to equalize so that your ears become unblocked, if I say it really simply. And I couldn't do that in the water because my ears were blocked even before I jumped into the water, which is of course unusual. And when I tried to dive in for more than 2 meters, I suddenly got a really sharp stabbing pain in my right ear, so I had to go up. And because of that, I started panicking, and everything was so new to me. I was really stressed out by all the equipment around me, the bomb on my back, and the thing I had to hold with my teeth and with my lips so that the water doesn't get into my mouth, which I'm supposed to breathe with. And there was water in my mask, and well, it is easy to get water out from your mask when you are above water, but it is quite hard to get water from under your mask when you are still underwater. So those were basically the reasons why I started panicking on my first try. I gave it a second try, but still I didn't feel comfortable. Luckily, we got a second chance because on that boat trip, we first had a stop, I don't know where, and then we drove for another half an hour, and we had another stop there for, again, both diving and snorkeling. And at the first stop, I tried snorkeling as well, and it was wonderful because I saw many sea turtles, and they were huge. One of the biggest ones could weigh over 100 kilos, and it was so much fun watching the sea turtle swim up so that it could breathe in and out and dive back in. Yeah, I loved it. And of course, again, swimming and snorkeling around the coral reefs, it's an experience worth experiencing. I really wanted to have a better experience with the diving, so I decided to give it a second go. And the instructor was super nice to me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have made it. And because I was already used to this whole experience, I was not panicking, and therefore I managed to dive in like 3 meters because more was not possible because of my eardrums. But still, I was under the water for like 15 minutes, which is my PR. And I think I definitely want to try diving again, possibly do like a basic beginner's driving license so that one day I can try it alone. And my husband totally fell for it, so I think that this could be a nice couple activity for us. So we're definitely going to try diving again. And those were the 3 trips we went on, but there was a lot of activities in the resort we could do even without going on trips. So of course, the usual, there was a lot of sunbeds. So some of the time we definitely spent sunbathing and swimming in the pool, and I was reading a book. Then there was a water park with 2 water slides and with a lazy river, so that was also a lot of fun. Then there were evening shows every night, so we saw a group of Indian dancers, and then there were classical dancers and some street dancers, and there was a lot of performances. Also, there was a lot of people who were entertaining you, basically employees of the resort, and they organized yoga sessions and water gym and Zumba and stretching and volleyball and ping pong. There was also a gym where I went to only once because after that session I actually fell sick. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I would have gone to the gym more times even if I had not fallen sick, because I didn't really like the equipment, and I felt like the air conditioning there wasn't really working, and since it was so hot, I didn't want to swim in my own sweat on a yoga mat, really. So that was not an activity for me, but I spent a lot of time going snorkeling and swimming. Another thing that took a lot of our time was definitely eating. There was a lot of restaurants we went to, and it was amazing. There was a lot of variety. We could choose from like 50 different options for breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. And since we could actually try out new restaurants, I didn't really get bored with the food until like the very last day. And another activity I was doing there was working. Luckily, I didn't have to work a lot. I usually woke up at around 5 or 6 a.m. I went to the restaurant where I got myself 2 cups of coffee. I started working, then I had breakfast, and I headed back to my room at 9 a.m. to wake my husband up. And of course, I spent some time talking to my family. We spent some time playing games and going for walks around the resort. And really, there were many activities you could do, so I really didn't feel bored at all. Actually, I felt like it was too short because the last day the whole family fell sick, and even though I was feeling much better, I couldn't really do a lot of things alone because, to be honest, I didn't feel like going out to the city alone or anything fun really. So I basically spent the last day on our hotel room in the bed with my husband, and we were watching Ozark. By the way, I am obsessed with this series right now. If you have not watched it yet, you have to. And then it was our last day, which meant we had to pack in the evening, and we had to set our alarms to 3 a.m. It was really painful waking up this early, but that's what we had to do because our bus came at like 4:20, so we had a meetup at the reception. We had to fill in some forms, hand in the cards from our rooms, and set off to the airport where we spent like 3 hours waiting. And the whole journey back took us 10 or 11 hours. So it was really tiring since we didn't really sleep. And that was the end of our holiday. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast. Please, if you're interested in learning more about my holiday and possibly seeing, for example, the resort and other activities with your own eyes, I recorded a vlog. It's got 30 minutes as well, and there are a lot of details and a lot of stories I haven't shared with you in this podcast. So I definitely recommend you to check it out. It will be out in a week. So if you are listening to it more than 7 days after this was published, it's already out, and you can find it on Výuka Aya online channel. If you enjoyed this podcast, I will be really grateful if you can give it thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you ever been to Egypt and where, and if you have not, if you want to go to Egypt. Have a nice day you all and I hope you'll be back for another podcast.
Chcete žít život bez jazykové bariéry a dosáhnout výsledku svých snů? Chcete na vlastní kůži zažít, jaké to je učit se anglicky systematicky, zábavně a vidět pokrok? Chcete se nechat vést profesionálem, který výuku přizpůsobí vašim potřebám, poradí vám, namotivuje vás a dá vám zpětnou vazbu, abyste věděli, co používáte správně a co špatně a mohli se díky tomu posunout? V tom případě jste narazili na toho pravého lektora pro vás. V základu nabízím 2 formy spolupráce. Online klub pro samouky a individuální jazykový mentoring. Jak si vybrat? Já ve výuce kladu obrovský důraz na individualitu. Jinými slovy to znamená, že neexistuje univerzální řešení pro každého, ale že každý by měl následovat takový systém a styl výuky, který bude odpovídat jeho osobnosti, jeho možnostem, ať už časovým nebo finančním, a také jeho cílům. Představím vám tedy tyto 2 formy spolupráce na konkrétních lidech a sami se rozhodněte, jaký popis na vás sedí spíše. Máme zde Kláru a Ivet. Klára se chce zlepšit v angličtině, ale má spoustu dalších povinností. Nemůže se angličtině věnovat naplno, ale ani tak se na ní nechce vykašlat úplně. Nechce nad sebou mít přímou kontrolu lektora a tak velkou zodpovědnost, ale vyhovuje jí komunita samouků, kde získá potřebnou podporu a motivaci. Je poměrně samostatná, ale chybí efektivní plán, struktura a zpětná vazba profesionála, aby věděla, že se posouvá. Pokud jste jako Klára, je pro vás vhodnější online klub pro samouky. A co Iveta? Iveta je ochotná angličtině teď dát maximum, aby dosáhla svého cíle. Najde si i 30 minut každý den. Potřebuje individuální plán přímo jí na míru, aby nestrácela čas a dosáhla svých výsledků co nejrychleji. Skupinová výuka jí moc nevyhovuje. Potřebuje hodně pozornosti, podpory a vedení. Zároveň si na sebe potřebuje tak trošku ušít bič, aby jí to donutilo pracovat a neusnout na vavřínech. Pokud jste jako Iveta, tak individuální jazykový mentoring bude ta správná cesta pro vás. Pokud bych to měla shrnout, tak zásadní rozdíly mezi klubem a individuálním mentoringem jsou v časové náročnosti. Klub vyjde na zhruba 10 minut denně, mentoring ideálně na 30 minut denně, ale záleží tam už na individuální domluvě, protože to je přece jenom individuální jazykový mentoring. Klub, co se týče klubu, tak tam je výuka přizpůsobená skupině. To znamená, nerespektují se v ní potřeby jednotlivců, ale potřeby celé skupiny. Podle zpětné vazby účastníků přizpůsobují program, který je vhodný pro úrovně A2 až B2. To je jinými slovy znamená, že je třeba mít nějaký základy v angličtině, není vhodný pro úplný začátečníky, ale zároveň pokud už teď mluvíte naprosto plynule, máte pokročilou úroveň vyšší než B2, tak ani pro vás není skupinový program vhodný. Individuální jazykový mentoring je na druhou stranu vhodný naprosto pro každého, neboť výukový plán se 100% podřizuje vašim potřebám, koníčkům, preferencím i cílům. Pokud potřebujete vyšperkovat angličtinu kvůli maturitě nebo zkouškám, zaměříme se na ně. Pokud kvůli cestování nebo pracovnímu pohovoru, tak to samé. V klubu pro samouky máte možnost dostávat pravidelně zpětnou vazbu na vaše odpovědi, komentáře, otázky, ale je třeba být samostatný a úkoly dělat ze své vlastní vůle. Nebudu vám stát za zády s bičem. Pomůže vám ale obrovsky to, že dostanete mini úkol na 10 minut každý den a tím pádem pro vás bude jednoduché vytvořit si udržitelný denní návyk. V mentoringu budete mít mou plnou pozornost, budeme prakticky na týdenní bázi v úzkém kontaktu a neustále sledovat váš pokrok a upravovat plán podle vašich potřeb a preferencí. Budeme pracovat s pravidelnými deadliny, abyste angličtinu nemohli jenom tak odložit na dobu neurčitou. Znáte to. A tím pádem dosáhli tak svých cílů. Cenově klub vyjde na $20, což je podle aktuálního kurzu zhruba 600 Kč měsíčně. Individuální jazykový mentoring vyjde na 2500 Kč měsíčně. Aktuálně k dnešnímu datu 14. prosince 2022. Pokud stále nemáte jasno v tom, jakou službu si vybrat, napište mi na e-mail eliska@výukaionline.cz. Já vám to napíšu i do popisku. A zároveň, pokud se chcete přihlásit nebo jen získat více informací, pročíst si recenze mých studentů a podobně, tak stačí rozkliknout také odkaz v popisku videa a tam se dozvíte vše potřebné. A já se na vás budu hrozně moc těšit.